Hey everybody, today I wanted to share an approach that completely changed how I learn music. And if you've ever felt like it takes forever to master just one piece, I think my experience, what I'm about to share with you and show you, might really help. But let me start with a story. Back in college, I used to believe that more practice automatically meant better results, and I held on to that idea for way too long. If I had figured this out earlier, tragically, if I had figured this out earlier, I'd probably actually be much further along in my own musical journey. When I was learning music, my approach was basically just to clench my fists and hack away at a piece of music until it was learned. Basically just suffer through it until it was mostly learned. And so instead of practicing methodically with a problem-solving mindset, I would just mess up over and over again, or even worse, just kind of procrastinate until one day I had to get it done to be ready for a jury or a recital or something. And you know, as a kid, it's basically what you're told, right? If at first you don't succeed, try again. But honestly, that advice really needs an update because what happens if you keep trying and it's not working? At some point, you're gonna feel like something's off with you, right? It really needs to be updated to, if at first you don't succeed, try differently or try maybe more insightfully. And culturally, I think there is this expectation that you just have to grind it out. For me, especially once I got to music school, I literally kept thinking that quantity equaled progress or quality. I would spend endless hours of practicing, but I really wasn't getting anywhere. Difficult passages, especially the intricate ones, would discourage me. I knew slow practice was supposed to help, but it felt boring, and I just kind of struggled to stick with it. And so I would literally stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning practicing every night, which is so romanticized in the movies, right? Like you see that and think, wow, this person is so artistic and so dedicated. But in reality, it took a toll on me. It took a toll on my health, my sleep, my concentration, my efficiency, and even my enjoyment of playing the piano and life. If I could do those years over, I'd probably limit myself to maybe 4 hours of focused practice and get way more done in less time instead of burning myself out. And so things started to change during my master's degree. I came across this amazing book that really shifted my perspective called Practicing for Artistic Success. My teachers were really wonderful, but we really didn't talk much about how to actually practice. Lessons were more about do this, do that, move your arm here, play with this sort of expression, and so on. And so I'd leave with a list of improvements, but it was sort of unspoken how I should go about making them happen. And so this book introduced the idea that every artist basically has two sides. You have the expressive artist that you see on stage, but then you also have the behind the scenes sort of manager who plans, organizes, problem solves. You never see this part of musicians in the movies, getting out their calendars and planning practice blocks and things like that, but it's actually a huge part of real progress. And I can't recommend this book enough. I will include a link in the description below if you'd like to check that out. But I took this idea and I tweaked it into what I like to call an architectural approach to learning music, especially when it comes to untangling difficult passages. So when you look at a piece of music you want to learn, think like an architect or a builder. Like, what's the first thing you need to do? Not, can I hack it until I get it right, but what's the thing that I can do correctly on the first try right now? And that might mean slowing the music way down, practice hands separately, working on smaller sections, whatever it takes to get it right from the start. And just like a building needs a solid foundation, you need a solid foundation for any difficult passage. And from there, you can build it up layer by layer. And this is going to make practicing, or if you try it, at least it's what it did for me. When I started implementing practice like this, it made it so much more enjoyable because I felt like there was a clear path. I felt like I was getting somewhere. Now, that's not to say there's not some repetition involved, but I'm going to show you an example right here, and you can apply this to whatever music you're working on right now. This is an excerpt from Rachmaninoff's D major prelude, and we're just going to look at a tiny section from here to here. Now, old me would have just kind of like hacked away at this until one day it was right, just sort of, oh, wrong note, oh, try it again, you know, or even worse yet, just kind of blowing through with all kinds of mistakes. And so again, with sort of an architect's mindset, I would look at a passage like this now and think, okay, what's one thing I can do correctly right now on the very first try? You could almost think of it as the rule of the first try here. And so I would look at this personally and think, well, I think I can swing that right hand by itself slowly and play it accurately on the first try. Let's see what happens. So first try, and there's something kind of beautiful about that, about changing sort of the parameters so that you can actually play some component of what you're working on correctly the very first time. And then the idea is you take that and you repeat it several times again. And if you make any kind of mistake, you have to go back. That's the rule, just like with a video game. And so, okay, now I'm not gonna make you sit through it while I play through it 10 more times, but then from there, okay, what do I do next? Well, maybe the left hand, I can enjoy some accuracy there. Granted, I'm only working on one measure right now. Okay, now my left hand's nailed. Now, how can I begin putting the hands together? Again, I could slow it way down. I could do something like this. Or if I'm struggling with that, you can always do less music. Like let's say I was having trouble with that, I could decide, all right, I'm just gonna do like the first 2 beats of this measure. Again, it makes it easier. So there's always something that you can change, whether it's hands alone, doing less music, slowing the tempo way down, that you can play it correctly the first time and then build it from there. Another layer, keep going step by step. And so I've turned this approach into what I think is the ideal 15-minute practice routine, which I go into detail about right here. If you want to learn, you can check it out. Thanks for watching.